Have you ever spent hours replaying a conversation in your head, analyzing every word, every pause, every tiny gesture, and wondering if you said the right thing? Maybe you're lying awake at night, thinking about what you should have done differently, or why someone looked at you a certain way. If this sounds familiar, congratulations. You might just be a professional overthinker. And don't worry, you're not alone. In fact, the psychology of overthinking is something almost everyone dips into at some point, but some people just never stop. So why do some people overthink everything? It turns out it's not just being anxious or paranoid. There's a deep psychological framework behind it. Overthinking often stems from a brain wired for prediction. Our minds are like little mental weather apps. They constantly forecast scenarios, assess risks, and simulate possible outcomes. The problem is, sometimes the forecast is never clear, and the mind keeps running the simulation over and over until you feel trapped in a loop of what-ifs. Think about it this way. If your brain were a computer, it would be stuck on the loading screen. Every decision, every social interaction, every minor slip-up is logged, analyzed, and rerun endlessly. This isn't necessarily a flaw, it's actually an adaptive mechanism. Evolutionarily, humans needed to anticipate threats, plan ahead, and avoid mistakes. People who could think through consequences had a survival advantage. But here's the catch. Modern life isn't exactly the savannah, and the threats aren't lions. They're emails, awkward conversations, and deciding whether to text back immediately or wait 10 minutes. Now let's talk about the patterns you might notice if you're prone to overthinking. First, there's rumination. This is when a thought gets stuck, and your brain keeps spinning it around, examining it from every possible angle. Maybe you said something in a meeting and now you can't stop replaying it. Or you sent a text and now you're imagining all the ways it could be misinterpreted. Rumination isn't just annoying. It can trigger stress hormones and make you physically tense. Your mind and body are connected, and overthinking can literally make your heart race and your muscles tight. Then there's analysis paralysis. This happens when you have too many options and can't make a decision. Should I say yes? Should I say no? Should I go left or right? Overthinkers often get stuck here because the brain wants to make the perfect choice, even when a good enough choice would work just fine. This is partly why some people procrastinate. They're trapped in the loop of endless evaluation. And ironically, the more you try to control the outcome by thinking, the less control you often feel. Another fascinating aspect of overthinking is how it interacts with personality traits. People who score high on neuroticism tend to experience stronger emotional reactions to stress, making them more likely to replay negative scenarios. Introverts, on the other hand, may overthink because they spend more time internally processing experiences rather than seeking external feedback. And perfectionists? Well, they often overthink because they have an internal bar that's impossibly high, and every action feels like a test they might fail. But it's not all doom and gloom. Overthinking in moderation can have benefits. Careful analysis can lead to better planning, higher empathy, and greater attention to detail. Some of the most thoughtful, creative, and strategic people are natural overthinkers. The key difference is whether your thinking serves you or traps you. When overthinking spirals, it becomes less about insight and more about self-criticism, anxiety, and indecision. So, what can you do if you recognize yourself in this pattern? First, awareness is powerful. Simply noticing that you're overthinking can create a tiny gap between thought and reaction, giving you a moment to decide whether the thought is useful or harmful. Second, consider setting limits. Some people use time boxing, giving yourself 5 minutes to mull over a decision, then moving on regardless of whether you feel 100% confident. Third, externalize your thoughts. Writing them down or talking them through with someone else can break the loop. The act of putting thoughts into words often diminishes their power to overwhelm. Here's a psychological twist that might surprise you. Overthinking can sometimes signal a high level of intelligence or emotional depth. Research has shown that reflective thinking is linked to analytical reasoning, moral awareness, and empathy. The trick is to harness this ability rather than letting it dominate your life. Think of it as having a high-powered engine. If you don't steer, it can burn fuel without getting you anywhere. But if you channel it, you can drive further than most people ever will. There's also a cultural component. Some environments reward constant planning, meticulousness, and caution, subtly reinforcing overthinking habits. Social media, for instance, can be a perfect playground for overthinkers. Every post, comment, or like can trigger micro-ruminations. Did I respond correctly? Did they notice I didn't respond? Am I projecting the right image? The digital age gives our predictive brains more scenarios to run than ever before. Now let's take a step back and think about overthinking in a more human light. Overthinkers are often deeply empathetic and conscientious. They care about others, consequences, and doing the right thing. The downside? They can struggle with self-compassion, constantly judging themselves against hypothetical outcomes. A powerful mindset shift is realizing that perfection is impossible, uncertainty is inevitable, and mistakes are part of growth. Overthinking doesn't have to disappear, it just needs boundaries. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine you're invited to a small party. You spend days worrying about what to wear, what to say, who might be there, and whether you'll say something embarrassing. By the time the event arrives, you're exhausted mentally, but what if you reframed it? What if you accepted that some awkward moments are inevitable, that everyone else is too focused on themselves to scrutinize you, and that showing up authentically matters more than overanalyzing? Suddenly, overthinking becomes less of a trap and more of a gentle nudge to prepare without overloading. Another useful tactic is to focus on action over analysis. Overthinking often gives the illusion of control, but real control comes from doing, experimenting, and learning from feedback. Instead of imagining every worst-case scenario, pick one step forward and take it. Your brain will still run forecasts, but now they're informed by reality rather than endless speculation. Finally, a little humor goes a long way. Overthinkers often recognize the absurdity of their own mental loops. Laughing at your inner dialogue, naming your inner critic, or imagining you're overthinking as a tiny, frantic squirrel running in a wheel can create the mental distance necessary to regain calm. The key is compassion for yourself, combined with strategic, intentional thinking. So if you've ever lain awake wondering why someone didn't text back, replayed a conversation 100 times, or agonized over a minor decision, remember this. Your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's running predictions, seeking safety, and analyzing possibilities. The goal isn't to stop thinking entirely, it's to think smarter, not harder. Recognize the patterns, create boundaries, take action, and give yourself permission to step off the mental treadmill. Overthinking can be a strength, but only when it works for you, not against you. Next time you catch yourself spiraling into a loop, pause, breathe, and ask, is this thought serving me or just running in circles? And if the answer is the latter, let it go. Embrace imperfection, embrace uncertainty, and trust that even with a few missteps, life will unfold in ways your mind could never fully predict. After all, the art of thinking isn't about never doubting. It's about learning to guide your doubts with purpose. And that, my friend, is the psychology of overthinking everything.